Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 25th SF Doc Fest. The festival is taking place May 28th through June 7th, both in your computer screen, which is how our dear audience is experiencing this Q&A, as well as in person in San Francisco. A huge welcome to our filmmakers from our Stories on the Wire block. Welcome, everybody. Just to kick things off, I would love you to introduce yourself. Tell us what film you're here with, what you did on the film, and what the genesis of the story was. So, like, how did this come to be? And to kick it off, I'm going to pass it over to Adam. Hi, Adam. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm based in Toronto, and for my film, this may be a huge mistake. I basically did everything. I wrote it, shot it, directed it, produced it, recorded all the sound, mixed it, mastered it. I did everything. And that was more out of necessity than anything because I didn't have any budget while making it. And I just made it along my full-time job, which I'm traditionally a production sound mixer in film and television. And honestly, I wanted to shift from sound recording to directing. And the only way you can do something like that is to do it for yourself. No one's really going to give you an opportunity, so I just had to create one. And I was trying to make a short about art, about an artistic process that a friend of mine has. And in making that short, the building that he had lived in that housed artists for decades was sold. Everyone was evicted, and it was torn down and made way for luxury development. So really, as I
And
was
what
making the
drew you
short,
to that story? Yeah.
well, that was a follow the puck scenario where I kind of decided that even though I was making a short about an artistic process, the thing that was happening was more important than the process itself. So even though I still filmed the artistic process, I wanted to get more involved with what was happening in the community. And I've been in Toronto for 20 years, so I've seen the landscape of the city change immensely over that time. And it's only getting worse, if I'm being honest. And at that time, I basically just I had an idea where I was like, I might as well just film this all as it's happening. But of course, it was 6 years of filming, and I did not intend for that. So it really tested my patience and my commitment to it. So I started filming that in 2019 and just wrapped it up earlier this year.
Wow.
Um,
It's quite the
yeah,
journey. Well, thank you so much, Adam. Glad to have you
no,
here.
thanks for having me and thanks for watching. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Gonna move over to Alexandra. Hi. Welcome. Tell us about yourself and what you did and why you did it.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you for having us. And I am calling from New Orleans, and my film is based in New Orleans. And the story found me because our producer on this project, named Colin Cadaret, had seen another short documentary that I directed about another New Orleans subculture in New Orleans. And simultaneously, he had read this book by Macon Fry, who's one of the main participants in our film, who is a lifelong resident on The Bachelor and had spent his life making this book that archived the history of this, centuries old place through the residents who live there, through the way of life there. And Colin had reached out to me, sent me the book, and I had no idea that this community existed, right essentially in my hometown. And so I'd read the book and then I went and met Macon and had spent, time with Macon and then the last, nine residents of this community. And in that moment, I realized, this place needs to be archived cinematically. Like if Macon had made this book archiving the place, I wanted to preserve this place through a film. And so that was really like the intention going into this was, this place exists slightly outside of the systems and the way of life that we're used to. And I just wanted the audience to feel briefly like they're encountering another way of life. And I think that we were like first and foremost inspired by the hard-earned like life philosophy and wisdom of the people who live here and kind of just saw them as these like river sages that had all this wisdom to share with us on like how to live life in a way that I think is an art that's kind of disappearing, a way of looking at environment and like living in harmony with the river and like reciprocity with your neighbor. These places, it's an ecosystem of homes that require not only self-reliance, but working with your neighbor in order to survive. So
That's
that's kind
awesome.
of the soul of the making of this.
Thank you so much. I love a part that really sticks with me is I'm gonna misquote it, but it's like more people come in and it becomes like everywhere else. Like a place
Yes.
that's really trying to keep its uniqueness. So thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Great. Leia, hello, welcome. Please tell us about yourself and your film.
Hi, hello. So my name is Lea Vidotto Rabesti. I'm the director of Los Peces No Se Ahogan. That it's in international name, it's Fish Don't Drown. I'm the director, but I'm also the DOP and the editor of the film. I worked with Venus de la Torre, who helped me with the sound, and Mariana Leao for the sound design. I filmed this short film when I was in Cuba because I was studying at the ACTV, the film school there. And I think that this film, the idea of this film started because a few years ago I was working on a previous short film on the theme of care and specifically on elder care with a short film that I did with my own family. And when I started studying in Cuba, I felt like I needed to work on something that I knew personally. And I started to look for situations where young people were taking care of elder people. And I found Malelo, who is the protagonist of the short film, who happens to be in the situation of what happens after the death of the person he took care for many years. And I felt like it was the right um,
Like a
the way
follow-up to your previous
to
work.
follow
Yeah.
up exactly of what I already worked on before. And I think that I usually I like to work on um, working on collective themes through intimate stories and to try to work on the boundary between what is intimate and what is collective. And in this film, the collective care, it's really something that emerges. And that's why I decided to work on this subject.
I love that. It really does come through so love in such a lovely way too. So
Mm.
thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for being here. Up next, I would love to chat with Michele about your film and what you did and why you did it. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I am the director of Mi Casa Amarilla, My Yellow Home. I wrote it with Kate Martyr, who is an English journalist based in Germany. We met together in La Palma, in the Canary Island, in the Atlantic Ocean, for a film residency with Werner Herzog. And we didn't know each other, and we had 11 days to explore the island thanks to the Spanish production La Selva, and they did a great job in casting a lot of people that wanted to participate as actors or just people, not ordinary people in the residency as well. So I got fascinated by these two young girls. They wanted to participate together, Marta and Aisha. And basically, the island, a huge part of the island is affected by volcanic eruptions. And there was a huge eruption in 2021. So when we went there, the trauma was still very big many people lost jobs and houses, and only one person died. But when I got when I watched this 1 minute casting of the two little girls, I got immediately fascinated by the way kids can see a traumatic episode of a community, and how they can still talk about the trauma, but also to overcome it in their fresh way to see their reality. And I participated to this residency because I wanted to uh, kind of overcome my observational style in documentary filmmaking. So in the short film, I was able to direct their narration of what happened. So I brought them in this huge field of ashes. So they are playing in a place in which they wouldn't play actually. So and then I brought Marta in the exact spot of where the grandparents' home was destroyed by the lava. Uh, and so yes, my intention was to represent how kids can overcome trauma in their simple way.
We really appreciate that. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to jump over to Via and Sydney. Welcome. Please tell us about yourselves and your film and what did you both direct together, your co-directors, yeah?
Um, yeah, so I'm Bia. I'm the director, cinematographer, and editor of Save Flat Top. And sorry, our dog is like kind of been disruptive during this time.
Our
So if
dog
you
is
hear her,
trying
They
to go.
can come too. They can
yeah,
be a part of it.
bring her into to the
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I have a lot of parallels with Adam. Just I was in the commercial narrative space a lot and felt this need to tell real stories about real people and kind of leave that space. And I think the only way I could do that is to make my own film. And Sydney and I collaborate a lot in life and in art. And so I think this need to help do something with impact and also the need to explore my own artistry, like through touching this film and all these aspects and editing and directing and shooting it myself was something that I was really yearning for. And so the idea kind of came from that need and also being exposed to this community, this Lincoln Heights, and just seeing this huge amount of resistance coming from such a small place and feeling so connected to them and their stories. Like as an Latina immigrant myself, just like being in that space, I think, brought up so much stuff about my culture and the things that I've felt since leaving. And it was exactly what I needed, I think, to leave this kind of rut I was in this like commercial space and feeling like I wanted to tell stories that felt like they mattered more to me and also to participate in local resistance movements. And so I think thanks to Sid, which I'll pass it over. So we didn't direct together, but Sid was actually such a huge part of the directing. So I want to like, you know, share that with her too, because creatively we were in it together. It was just us. Like she was holding the boom, I was shooting. We would come home, we would edit. We'd be like, what do we need to get? Okay. So unlike Adam's, to shout him out again, it's just ours was like a 6 week process and his being a 6 year process. We were very much like hyper filmmaking.
Focus.
Yes. So I'll
Yes.
kick it off to Sydney, talk about how we came across this story too.
But yeah, hi everyone. I'm Sydney. I produced this, and as Bia said, kind of found my way into a bunch of other random roles throughout this process. But yeah, I basically we had some comrades, some online friends that we had connected with via random local LA activism, and they were posting a lot about this court case that was upcoming around saving this, flat top, this green space in their neighborhood that has been very important to the community for forever. And there was this court case, and they were really encouraging people to come out and support and show up to resist, the this mansion that the film mentions. And
we saw it and we were like, how can we help? We want to, like get the word out. We want to get more bodies here. And so we decided to make a little short film. It was going to be like a 1 minute sizzle. And then once
Right.
we hopped into the story and started chatting with everyone and seeing how much there was to tell, we decided that it deserved more time and more attention and more space to really, represent this strong, resilient community that was giving everything to try to resist development.
Awesome.
So,
And
yeah.
just want to
Thank
shout
you.
out
Thank you.
our partner, sorry, in making the film grow, generating resources and organizing for wellness, a local Lincoln Heights organization that really like brought us into the organizing and just are all the voices you see in the film. So just wanted to shout them out.
It's awesome. Thank you so much. Jumping over to Mia and Shubhra, welcome. Mia, we'll kick it off with you and you can pass it off. Tell us about your film.
Cool. Hi, everyone. Thanks to everyone for watching. So I'm Mia. I'm one of the co-directors of Mr. Ramen, and Shubhra and we co-directed and kind of two-woman band or did all of the film, mostly just us two, except for the very end stages. And yeah, we had worked on a short film previously together, and so we just knew that we wanted to work together again and see what we could kind of accomplish with just us two. And we started with just kind of the seed of the idea of wanting to make a film about family and community in one of LA's most iconic neighborhoods, which is Little Tokyo. And we are very inspired by characters and people. So we just started going out and meeting people in the community. And we found the restaurant Mr. Ramen pretty soon after that. And we both instantly had a unique and specific connection to the brothers that were there running the restaurant. And for me, I had lost a parent a couple years ago, and they were still processing the grief and the formation of kind of their own identity after losing their dad, who had started the restaurant. So that was definitely when I knew that, okay, we had something in common, and I really wanted to go deeper on the story. I'll pass it over to Shubhra.
Hi, yeah, I'm Shubhra, co-director with Mia. I'm actually in San Jose right now. I'm from the Bay Area, but I'm based in LA. So this is so special. Um, when we met the brothers, it was kind of like an instant connection, and we felt so incredibly like not only inspired by their story, but also just could relate to their family dynamics. I have a sister, and I would always talk to like Ray about how my older sister used to like beat me up, and he's like, "Oh my God, I did that to my brother." Like it was so I like there was like an instant kind of like familial bond that even formed between us. Um, and so it was really special, and we just kind of hung out with them for like a month before we started filming, and that process of creating real intimacy with the participant of a film was something I'd never done before, and so it was just a great yeah, it was a great learning experience, and I think it paid off in the film.
That's awesome. Thank you both so much for sharing. Um, I would love to jump around a little bit and just ask you some questions about your own films. I'm going to come back to Michele. Can you just talk a bit about working within this landscape? Because it is incredibly haunting. I will say, like, when I first started the film, when I was judging, I was like, oh, this is The Shining, but not. But there's just something about the like angelic children in the midst of this ruin that is so compelling. So can you just talk about how you worked within that space? And did you go in like expecting that kind of contrast visually?
No, I am starting to realize that I write and imagine stories thinking about contrasts. So I think it immediately when I got into the island, you La Palma it was the third major port of the Spanish Empire. So it was one of the most important Canary Island. Now it's less important than Tenerife or other islands in terms of tourism. But when you go to the island, you see a little cute island on one side. There is also one of the most important um, station when you can study the stars and the planets on 2,400 meters. And then there are these places that are devastated by lava eruptions. And when we went there, you can feel that a lot of people lost many things, and so it's so huge that the trauma and the devastation that sometimes it's difficult to imagine a story immediately. So I don't know. When I met these two little girls, I immediately thought that it was important to talk also about their trauma as kids. They lost the schools, they lost their homes, but people on the media, of course, talked a lot more about business and the adult people. So when I met the girls, I thought, well, what happened to these two little girls when they had 5 years old, and there was this huge tragedy that hit everybody,
Yeah.
and maybe kids were left in a corner, their point of view neglected in a way.
I think it comes through very clearly. I
Yeah.
love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Leia, I'd love to jump over to you. I think obviously here in the States, Cuba was back in the news because, you know, our government here does what they're going to do, but then it kind of disappeared, obviously, because we started other fights. But you just see the effects that other countries have on Cuba in terms of like really blockading them, of really blocking Cuba from having access to basic necessities like fuel and imports. Can you talk a bit about how being in a position of caretaking under those constraints really shaped your story?
Yeah. First of all, I would say that even the subject of the film is related to the blockade and the US, and also the fact that the fact that people, like at the beginning when I wanted to shoot the film, it was also because I found out that in Cuba, lots of young people decide to take care of elder people because they know that the agreement will be, I will inherit the house when you will die. And I thought that it was really strong. Like they usually do this because it's the only way they could sell the house and then decide to emigrate to go to another place, because from the people I've met in Cuba, unfortunately, lots of them, they want to go away because the situation is really bad. They have, how would you say, apagones, that are the blackout every night.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Part that it's central, and it's a part where they start to talk about politics between a little girl and Rudy and Malelo, the co-protagonists, and I think that they are really cynical. At least Malelo, he's a protagonist, cynical, and at the same time he has this tenderness that reveals at the end, I would say. But I had the feeling that when I was filming with him and all the months I met him before, and when I decided how I wanted to show all the political consequences of how they live every day, this was something that came from Malelo, because he really wanted to be shown in the film. Beginning, I wanted to focus more on the inheritance of the house and how he stays in this house where he does not feel has as he is the owner because he inherited already, but he still have lots of problems with the bureaucracy. So
It's
he
uncertain for him and what he can access. Yeah.
so he's not he feels still as he's in Maria Antonia house. So he
Mm-hmm.
stays and he opened his house to all his neighbors. He
Thank
and
you.
during the process, I was staying there a lot of time, and I could like realize how much the other people from the neighborhood was staying in his house because he had this privilege of having this big
Yeah.
house.
Thank you so much for sharing. He's definitely, you're seeing that he doesn't quite feel at home within his inheritance and it's uncertain. And that reflects the political landscape. Thank you so much for chatting about it. Adam, I would love to jump over to you and just
Sure.
talk about day one versus your very last day of shooting. Like, how much did you expect this outcome, even if you did, because, gentrifying be gentrifying. What was that emotional impact when you had your last day of filming and when you saw the building come down?
Well, it's funny you say that because the building coming down wasn't even the last day of filming. It took actually almost well over a year to destroy the building because it came down brick by brick. So knowing that everyone was evicted and displaced and really had nowhere to go because that building that existed in Toronto was the last of its kind. So we destroyed a space, and the feeling around that is really the end of an era. There's nowhere for those people to go where they'll have the same sort of environment that they had there for decades. So it's really difficult because the landscape of Toronto has changed even in the 20 years that I've lived here, and we've really ruined it. Like we've lost a lot of artistic space, a lot of place for people to be creative, and those were third places where people didn't have to spend money to hang out. And aside to all of that is that these were like marginalized, queer-friendly communities that are now not the community still exists, but they have nowhere to go. And we've just replaced all of those communities with luxury development. So the feeling around it is really bittersweet because it's like I'm excited because it's wrapping up a project that I've put so much time and energy into, but it's incredibly bitter because what are the options left?
Everything's
And
gone. Yeah.
yeah, it's all gone. And something that I didn't put in the film but was really unique was that because the destruction of the building took about a year, as I was out there filming, I was out there like multiple times a week. People from the neighborhood would just come around and ask me what I'm doing and like give me their stories on their experience with the
Hmm.
building. And it's like,
So it's still very much ongoing. I'm sorry, we're starting to run just a little bit low on time, so I'm gonna
sure,
jump over.
yeah,
But
it's there's just it was a domino effect where it's like you can do one thing and it leads to another, and it's like clearly there's a sense of community that's being lost.
yeah,
And it's going to be
I
really hard to
definitely feel
find it
that.
again. Yeah.
We'll find spaces. We'll just have to hijack them.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Adam.
Thank you.
I think this is a great segue back over to Bia and Sydney. I mean, obviously, LA is under many constraints. When I think about the challenge around Flat Top, I think a lot about Chavez Ravine and a lot of the redlining that has historically happened and the disregard of Indigenous space and BIPOC space within our city. So can you just chat a little bit more about working within the community and telling this story?
Yeah. Go ahead. Um, yeah, I mean, we involved every like we spoke to Indigenous people when we were making this film. We spoke to biologists, like we spoke to everyone that had um a stake in this land. And this land was just so important during COVID as well. And um just it's a corridor for so much nature. There's black walnut, that's this protected species there, which is such an important um cultural, like it's a protected species, and a lot of people go to these places to try to develop luxury develop like to try to push these projects forward and ignore all the life and biology that exists there. They go in the off season so they can like get away with saying, oh, there's nothing here. And we just could continue to peel back corruption after corruption after we just like talk to, much like Adam. We'd be on the street and someone would be like, hey, like, I just got evicted. Now I'm like, like Rosa, who's making pupusas in the film, that was someone we just met and incorporated her in as well. So it just I think it was really hard discovering like all the layers of that
Hmm.
emotion and how much Lincoln Heights and communities in general have to resist to keep pushing. And right now, the case is still ongoing because of that continuing resistance. It may not be the outcome we want, but the uh, postponing of it is also part of the fight. And just I don't know
Yeah.
if that answers your question.
No, that's totally like the community is helping to shape the advocacy, and the advocacy is giving a stay of the destruction in many ways. Thank you so much. Mia and Shubra, I think that we're definitely seeing this tension of encroaching spaces within Little Tokyo in LA. I think we see this a lot with family-run businesses. Can you just talk a little bit more about what the process was like to kind of befriend the family and get them to trust you to get to tell this story? Because they're not only protecting a family legacy, they're also protecting the legacy of the neighborhood, right? It's the last family-run business of its kind in the area, if I remember correctly from the film. Can you just kind of briefly tell us about what that process was like?
Yeah, it was actually, I mean, it was actually a lot easier than you'd think because, yeah, Mr. Ramen is the last family-owned ramen restaurant on historic First Street. Everything else has kind of been bought out or commercialized. Um, so when we met the boys, they were kind of like pretty easy to ask like about their story, and I think when you point a camera in front of someone who is underrepresented, there's a kind of almost eagerness to share, um, because there's like so little out there on, Little Tokyo and the gentrification that's happening. So it wasn't too difficult, but I will say like spending time with them really like pushed us, over to the next mile. We would go and we woke up at like 6 a.m. to go to all of the like grocery store runs with like Udai, and he does this like every day. We hung out with Eugene, and he was telling us about all the like emo moshing scenes he was like in, and we like for his like guitar scene, we tried to like build up the energy. So while Mia was filming, I was like moshing in the back so that he could like really feel like he was like performing. Um, and yeah, I don't know, Mia, do you want to talk more
That's
about?
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just like to say I think their vulnerability really matched ours. And from the moment that we met them, we were really vulnerable about the reasons why. We had heard kind of surface pieces of their story, but we wanted to know more. We were sharing about our lives, and that really paved the way for everything else.
I appreciate that. It's such a give and take sometimes when you're getting somebody to trust you with their story. Thank you so much. And last but not least, Alexandra, um, it's so fascinating because in some ways, when you came into this story, you had a bit of a blueprint in terms of the history. Um, but obviously, you got to know the people that live there and more about their stories. Was there anything that was like surprising about life there, or that you learned that was new to like bring out the roadmap that you had been given at the very beginning?
Yeah, I love the overlap of motifs and themes and this like the universal themes that we have, and it's great hearing that through line in all of our films. So I can't wait to see y'all's. Yeah, I mean, I think, going into every project, I never really know what it's going to be about. I think that I'm searching for like the core, that like universal theme and message of like what what is the wisdom that's meant to be imparted on me as an individual, but in some ways I hope that I can be a vessel to like share that with the world through this community that lives on the very edge of the Mississippi River, that like maybe others would never have the opportunity to go and sit on a porch and like listen to. But I do think that what was surprising for me, that this did become a film that had these messages that we're all talking about, right? Like homogenization and gentrification and like losing spaces that uh, have history and way of life, and that we live in a society that doesn't like really value that, and what happens, what's like the byproduct and the side effect of not preserving this way of life or these spaces or these like family businesses. Like what happens to us as individuals and as a society when we lose it all, and there's a complete, just we lose all of that. So I think what surprised me the most was that at the core, this became a film about these like beautiful, deep, the wisdom and the philosophy of this place and the people, and that they've earned that life philosophy through committing to this lifestyle and to this way of life, and to like committing to survival, essentially, for better or for worse, even if it means living in a place that's so precarious and requires immense sacrifice and requires like pushing up against the systems that try and like encroach and the people that try and encroach. So yeah, I feel like I come out of every project honestly like so surprised by
Yeah.
the message.
Like,
And
oh, I
yeah,
opened this box and then there's like another box underneath in a
yeah,
hidden compartment. I love it.
it's like such the joy of this work for me. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing, and thank you to everyone for joining us today. Very excited for our audience to get to experience this program. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.